Uxbridge, and welcome to this episode of What's Up in the U. I'm Nick Fernandez, happy to have you, and alongside me is none other than our athletic director, Christopher Carbone. Mr. Carbone, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, happy to get you in here. I know you've had a pretty hectic year with everything going on so far.
Yeah, finally we made this happen. So I'm excited to talk with you and answer all of your questions and, this conversation.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah.
I mean, it took us, 5 or 6 tries before we finally got in here, but we made it.
We did.
And to start things off, how optimistic were you at the very beginning of this year when everything was beginning that we were going to play pretty much every sport like we have been so far?
Not entirely optimistic. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And the biggest challenge is, to take all of these modifications and to adapt them, to make them safe. The confidence was there on our end. We have a solid foundation here in Uxbridge. We have great protocols. Just making sure that we had the support from the state level, to give us those resources that we needed, to offer all of these sports throughout each season for our student athletes.
And we pretty much all saw from town to town this year that everyone was making their own councils and their own committees to figure everything out because it was obviously just such a difficult time.
Yeah, it's it is a difficult time. A lot of it is that sitting around and waiting, and to figure out what everyone else is doing, to figuring out, are they going to be approved? Are we a league? Are we a pod? What are we? So from Uxbridge's standpoint, as I mentioned, we have great support here. We have great leadership. We have great protocols, and we were ready at any given time. It's just working through those challenges and those variables, and to make sure that everyone else is ready as well.
And like you mentioned, the pod method this year for many sports, we split into a group of 4, us and 3 others. And were there any predominant methods that were being thrown around at first that people wanted instead of the pods?
Not really. The biggest thing was transportation, getting extra buses, more expenses, shorter bus drives. That was another determinant factor, because keeping these kids on a bus for a long period of time is not good. So I think that's the premise of what they've making those decisions when they were talking about pods. For us in the SWICL, it hasn't been consistent because it's pods for the fall. It's different pods for basketball, but it's Central Mass for football. Not sure what indoor track's going to look like, and truthfully, what spring's going to look like. So, I really wish that we could have somehow figured out as a league to be a league, to govern ourselves, to take care of ourselves, to split it up into north-south divisions, to keep with that geographical, distances. And again, I think that would have been the easiest solution, but for me, whatever it is, I'll put our student athletes in the best situation, with every opportunity that we get. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And among all that, what would you consider to be pretty much the most drastic change among the sports this year?
The sports itself, there's a lot of modifications. There's a lot of guidelines. Sports like soccer really didn't look like soccer. Field hockey, the same. Some sports, cross country and golf, where those low risk sports that really did not need a lot of modifications. But definitely the big changes came from those sports specific guidelines that were approved by the Sports Medicine Committee and later the Board of Directors.
Yeah, I remember in those early games when I was trying to broadcast the first couple soccer matches in field hockey, there was no headers, no throw-ins for soccer. It was just, like you said, it really didn't feel like soccer at first. It took a whole lot of getting used to.
It was definitely, a lot more responsibility for our coaches to learn the game, how it's going to be played during the pandemic. Having to teach not only the game, but those guidelines to the student athletes. They're so used to, their play habits, and they're so used to the games being, played and, the same. But again, this year the changes were very predominantly in the sport-specific modifications.
Oh yeah, and just adding on to that, do you think that there's going to be any maybe long-term changes to how the sports are being conducted or how the league itself is being conducted as the years go on because of this?
I don't know. I mean, I can see us getting back to a somewhat normalcy come fall, where we've already done this. We've gone through each season. We've seen what works, what doesn't. There's still going to be those guidelines. The pandemic is still going to be going on. There's still people who need vaccinations, and so whether or not we adapt some of these same changes, that's to be told. I have no idea what the fall is going to bring, and we'll be ready for it.
Yeah.
Again, we've gone through it. We're confident in our protocols, and we'll just keep it going.
I mean, that's the attitude with
Yeah.
everything going on.
Yep.
And what, from your specific position, what have you found to be the most difficult in trying to organize everything?
I mean, difficult is just really holding our students accountable. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I've had. Making sure that they're doing what they should be doing, that they're adhering to all of the protocols. Fortunately, we have a great coaching staff that could enforce all of those, all those rules and protocols. But I think that was, and that remains the biggest challenge. Fortunately, we've been safe. They come around. Constant reminders, as you're a high school student yourself, and I think that is, the biggest challenge from my end. The administration part, the planning, that's all, not necessarily easy for me, but that's the easier part of things.
Yeah.
Just making sure that our students are, and coaches themselves are abiding by all of these changes and guidelines. Because honestly, their safety is paramount. Making sure that we can start a season, we can finish a season. Fortunately, we haven't been shut down. There's been really no hiccups. So, it's just those constant reminders and everyone, being accountable. I think those are, and that's the biggest challenge that I've had.
And I think it's definitely difficult from a coach's standpoint, not only having to learn everything that's been changed, but enforce it onto the kids you're trying to pretty much just inspire in a year that's been just so difficult to even get your sports going.
Of course, and like I said, with those students being, having those habits and being used to certain things, and coaches have to coach things differently, split things up more, be more organized, and factor in many different variables, throughout their practices and games. So.
Yeah, and do you think out of all of this that there's been any good to come from these modified seasons, whether it's just outlook or actual results?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all great. I mean, we're putting you on the field. We're giving you these opportunities. We've not closed down any sports. We've operated all of our sports within the seasons that we've been given. We haven't had any shutdowns, so it's all good. It's given all of our student athletes, all these opportunities to do what they love. So whether, as strict as we are in Exbridge, we're doing it. And eventually kids are coming around, coaches are coaching. This past week, we started out football. And let me tell you, on Friday, that was just a joy. Kids were moving around, running, celebrating. There was so much buzz around that practice. It just made me feel good that, we're doing it right. We're setting that foundation. We have a great coaching staff, and as long as our students are accountable, we'll make it through, and we'll have success that we did back in the fall and the winter, and hopefully throughout the spring, to the end of the year.
And I think what this all brought was a whole lot of perspective for the students and even the coaches, because
Yep.
I know hearing from all of my fellow classmates that we're just so excited to get back in the groove of all these sports. It shows that whether it gets repetitive at first as you go on from elementary to middle school, nothing is guaranteed when it comes to sports, resources, anything. So when things were at risk and they finally got that season and they were able to get back out there, it just made it all that more special.
Exactly, and I think the tone surrounding that is grateful. Students are grateful to embrace practice. I mean, the games are where it's at. I mean, you'd rather play in a game, right?
Absolutely.
But I'm telling you, I think kids are excited to be out there during practice at every single moment, because at any given time, it can be taken away. So I think, grateful is kind of the buzzword that's been, around the athletic department lately.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And what can you say to speak upon what these student athletes have gone through and these coaches have gone through firsthand in these seasons?
They've gone through a lot of changes. They've gone through a lot of perseverance, a lot of hard work, a lot of adapting. I'm just hopeful that all of these changes are bringing them that and preparing them for, what's to come, how to navigate through life, how to persevere, how to adapt. Things are always changing. Things remain very fluid. So I think the adaptability is a big trait that all of our student athletes are learning, really working hard for what they love. I think that's a few things that they're getting out of this.
Oh, that's surely important. And I think what I've heard a ton as well is independence has increased, that feeling of being more capable as this season has just been different. It's relied on people to do a lot of things themselves.
Yep.
And create their own opportunities, which I think has been huge.
Yeah, of course. And you're talking about themselves and being accountable, growing up, being mature. Because we're asking a lot of our student athletes, because safety is that their top priority. So again, as long as they're doing their part, being accountable, being independent, then I think we're in a good place.
Yeah. And in your case, what do you think you've learned yourself during this time and this experience that you've had?
Patience, adaptability. I think those two. And I've learned that really, it's a lot of hard work goes into this. And at times it seems like a thankless job that I'm really getting the sense of how grateful everyone is and the hard work that's being done right now on all levels, with the students, with the coaches, the staff, myself, our administration. So those are definitely a few things.
Yeah, and I feel like there's been a whole lot more love going on around here rather than the past years. Feeling grateful, like you said.
Yeah. And I think with gratefulness, I'm trying to, create these experiences to be as normal as normal can be. There's a lot of guidelines, there's a lot of modifications, a lot of restrictions, but all in all, we're trying to make it as normal for these, student athletes as possible. So I think that's a big thing, and we're giving our seniors their senior nights, and I think the biggest takeaway from this year that I would love is to have our student athletes walk away with a memorable experience, with a safe experience, and if they can do those two things, then that makes me feel like I've done my job pretty well.
And what sports have always been about, even from the beginning, is learning experience and something you can adapt into pretty much a life lesson.
Yeah.
And I think this year has just increased that exponentially to the point where it almost feels like every single practice, every moment is just a life lesson of its own.
Of course. There's a lot of, again, I think we touched on it, but there's a lot of things that these student athletes are learning above and beyond athletics, and those life lessons that will prepare them for the future, no matter where the road takes them. Yeah, I don't see, the pandemic letting up that easy too soon. So, hopefully they learn how to adapt, how to be flexible, independent, and again, just be prepared for whatever comes their way in the future.
And is there any goals or expectations you have for these next 2 seasons coming up this fall too, and the spring season that you're going to have?
Goals? Yeah, I keep on saying this, and I want to win. And what I mean by win is I want to get through the season successfully. There's nothing to play for. It's just the experience. It's getting these kids on the court, on the field, doing what they love doing, and making it through successfully, finishing. That's my ultimate goal, is to make sure that our student athletes finish and are safe, while doing so.
Yeah, it almost feels like a boxing match for this past year. We've just been against this tough opponent trying to stay on our feet, and I feel like we've done so pretty much all year.
Yeah, and and to that, I kind of feel like, for me, I'm on this hamster wheel that, I just keep on, going and going and going and going, and but we just put up to the challenges, we keep it going, and we box it out, and it's just, we go to the end. It's really important that our student athletes get these experiences. We don't want to deprive them of the opportunities that they deserve. So myself, our coaches, our administration will do whatever we can to keep it going while reaching our ultimate goal of finishing each season successfully and safely.
Yeah, and I'm hoping the same as well, as we finish these first 2 and might as well keep it going strong till the end, right?
Of course. Like I said, we're playing football, and well, now it's March 1st, but last week was February. So, however these seasons play out, we'll do what we can, and we'll put our best foot forward and hit it hard.
And I can't wait.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for coming in. That's all I had for you today, unless you have any final thoughts or something you want to say.
No, I appreciate you taking the time and to diving in here, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm looking forward to you finally getting your chance to play some tennis in the spring.
I can't wait. I've been waiting on that for a long time.
Yep.
So.
Unfortunately for you, it's going to be very nice out. It's coming in late April, and we're heading to late June, so it'll be a nice, beautiful spring season for all you athletes.
Yeah, that's an added touch. I never liked those early March, April games. Those were a little too cold for my liking for playing tennis. So, and I think we can say on behalf of everyone in Uxbridge, thank you for everything you've done this year as well.
Sure.
You've done a tremendous job getting everything going.
Of course, and we'll keep on going to the end. So whatever we can do for our student athletes, we're going to do.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. So that's all we had today. I'd like to thank you for tuning in to this episode of What's Up in the U. I'm Nick Fernandez. Have a good one.